Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Um, I'm Ben Yeager, partner and CEO at Hilltop Wealth Advisors, and we are excited to welcome you to our webinar series, Hilltop's Trail Guide to Financial Transitions. Today, we're discussing downsizing and are going to get some really very practical tips on items that have value and what should you do with them, as well as what do you do with everything else. Our guest today is Elizabeth Hurst. Well, she is the founder and owner of the Downsizers, which is a National Association of Senior Move Managers, accredited leader in movement management. Her team helps older adults and families navigate downsizing and estate liquidation with compassion and efficiency. They've completed over 5,000 projects, guided 15,000 plus family members, and just recently earned a place on the 2025 Inc. 5000 for their tremendous growth in the last 3 years. Elizabeth also co-founded the Consigners online auction house, which has sold over 20,000 lots and helped clients acquire or capture the value with care. Based in Chapel Hill, Elizabeth was named Businesswoman of the Year by the local chamber as well. So thank you for joining us today, Elizabeth.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to as well. A lot of great things on the topic today to talk through. But before I get started, want to mention to everybody, if you have a question while we're going through the presentation, please use the Q&A tab at the top to submit your question, and then we'll try to save some time at the end of the presentation to go through your questions and try to answer as many as possible. So to kick things off, Elizabeth, while we are in two very different industries, I think each of our businesses really center around helping individuals and their family in a time of transition. For us and financial advisors, many of them, retirement is a big one for them. But at Hilltop, we also help clients and guide them through all stages of life, whether that's starting their career and family, or even all the way through leaving a legacy for loved ones. So one big transition for retirees is downsizing. And that's what we're talking about today. It may be that their home just doesn't fit their lifestyle anymore, or maybe they're moving closer to family, or they found a retirement community that will be better able to fit their social network and medical care that they need. This often requires a daunting task of sorting through closets and attics to determine what to bring along with this new journey, and what to find another home for, and maybe just throw away or gift. So maybe just to get us started, perhaps you could just share a little bit on how the Downsizers helps individuals and families through this process, and then also how the consigners kind of continue that process as well.
Sure, absolutely. So we're a team of about 36 downsizing. I guess what we'll call ourselves experts at this point after 5,000 projects. And we serve the Triangle region. We are based out of Chapel Hill. So the Downsizers really looks at the full suite of services that a client may need as part of the downsizing process. So that could look like a lot of different things. So that might be, I'm in my 5,000 square foot home. I have lived here for 40 plus years. May have accumulated quite a bit in that time frame. I am moving to a senior community, in order to have continuing care, health benefits, socialization, less maintenance of a home, all the reasons why people make those decisions. And it is really important to understand the phases of a downsizing project, understanding what is the space you're going into. We help with the space design, spatial reasoning, understanding what is functional, aesthetics, all of the above, space management, and then also sorting through the many items in a home. And I'll share a fun fact with you. Most people don't know this, that in the Triangle region, let's say the average home size is about 3,200 square feet. In that 3,200 square foot home, on average, There's about 300,000 things in that home. And when you're downsizing and, often letting go of 80 to 90% of those belongings with a significant downsize, we are needing to touch every single one of those things, down to papers and pencils and glasses and art and office supplies, every category within the home. So that is a daunting number for anyone. And that is why people reach out for help with this process. It is completely natural to need help with this type of endeavor. And unlike any other move in a lifetime, people are needing to let go of a majority of their items in this process and really focusing in on the key items they want to keep. And that might be different than what you think as you're going through the process. So, because it's a lifestyle change as well. So we're creating a plan with a project manager and somebody who helps with the design. We're understanding who's involved in that process, a mover, auctioneers, retail consignment, a shipper. What else? Obviously, maybe a senior community or a 55 and over development. Lots of different parties involved. And then we are helping the clients go through the home. It could be the attic, which is a big, big, big project, or it could be an office, or it might be the primary bedroom closet, right? Lots of different size projects within one home. Also, then we manage the entire move. We professionally pack, we coordinate with movers, we work with either a senior community or you might be moving into a smaller single family home. And then we are settling our clients all the way from bringing all the supplies in, taking all the supplies out, art hanging, putting up window treatments, maybe even doing some personal shopping on behalf of the client. And then we are clearing the home. And that's a big job. Potentially 80% of the items are divided up into what has resale value, what has donation value, what should just be discarded, but also trying to really be thoughtful about keeping as much out of the landfill as possible. And then what we're talking about today is all the things that are resaleable. What is the market like? What is in demand? What is not in demand? What should we not waste our time on? Or potentially resources that you may not even know about to sell things through. So that's the whole suite. It sounds easier than it is, I promise. But there's, that is a very typical project that we would take on. And then, of course, we work within communities, moving folks from independent to assisted, maybe skilled nursing, memory care. Those are some of our absolute favorite projects, very meaningful. And then we also do estate liquidations where 100% is leaving the home and may be shipped to family members or might be, might need to be delivered via mover, interstate mover or intrastate mover. So it's a pretty broad service offering, as you can imagine, but it's really needed, especially when working with an older adult who really needs a single point of contact, because this is, as you can imagine, a very overwhelming process for many. So that's what we're bringing to the table. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that's really helpful. Like you're saying, that it's a big task, and so it's great that you've got that kind of full service model there that can kind of take things and work towards accomplishing that task. So excited to have you here today to talk through all of that. I felt like that was a good place to kind of just start as we get into this presentation. I love the title. A lot of, I think as you're looking at that closet or you're looking at that attic and you're saying, oh my gosh, what do I do with all this stuff? Trying to figure out, is it love it, save it, sell it, or chuck it, right? And so excited to see kind of as we walk through this, some of the items that really are getting a lot of traction out there, as well as maybe some of the things that we need to be thinking about giving away or figuring out a different place for it. So I'll let you kind of take it from here, but looking forward to this.
Okay, great. So I may go off on some tangent stories since we have a lot of them as part of this business as we come across some slides. I feel free. I don't know, Ben, if you want people to put any questions in the chat just so that they don't lose their thought process as we go through. I love questions. That's sometimes the most interesting part of the presentation. So happy to answer any scenarios or questions that you may have. This is a little bit like a antique roadshow from the standpoint of kind of what has value out there. And what we find with our clients is that what they may think has value in their home may not. And that's a hard thing to kind of face, but it's important to face it very early on in the process. And then the rest of the process is much easier for everyone. And then also understanding what might have value that you may not know that's in the home. So, the treasures that you might stick in a donation box and go, oh no, I wish I had known before. So that's some of the education that we're going to provide today. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the presentation so we can get going. So I told you a little bit about the Downsizers. We did open we are North Carolina auctioneers. So we opened up the consigners in a few years ago. The consigners is an online auction house, and you can actually download it on I'll show you on my phone, a little app on the phone, on the App Store, and you can kind of see hopefully you can see that screen just a little bit. You can just see all the active auctions that are coming up or completed auctions. And this is a great way to see what is going for how much, what is the market bearing right now. And you'll likely go on in the completed auctions and say, oh, I have that, or, oh, that's similar to something that's in my home. And that'll give you a real time value of what the market is bearing, because thousands and thousands of people are seeing these things every 2 weeks, and many people are bidding on them. And then the things that aren't doing well, it just shows you that there's not as much of an interest. And typically the reason why there's not much of an interest is because the supply of what is out there is greater than the demand. Dining room sets would be a great example of that. And so many, many, many dining room sets that were purchased for lots of dollars over the years are in our clients' homes, and it is very challenging to sell them now. Number one, people aren't using dining room sets in their homes. And two, there are so many available and for very inexpensive amounts that there's just not the demand there for most of them. So those are some of the conversations we have. The things you see on this presentation, these are all things out of our clients' homes that have been sold at auction, just to give you an idea. All right. So I'm just going to go over the problem and the solution. Okay. So the problem, and it's not really it's more of the reality and the solution. In 2021, 1 out of 6 people in North Carolina started turning 65 years or older. And by 2031, there will be more people over 65 than under 18 in the state. So this is just at a state level. You can imagine at a domestic or global level what these numbers look like. So 62% of Gen Z and millennial consumers say they look for items secondhand before buying new. So here we have the most amount of people letting go of items that have ever existed in our human race. Just sheer quantity and numbers and items that are coming out of homes. And on the other hand, we have these new generations that are just starting to have enough money, on Gen Z, because that's my kids' age, right? They just are starting to have some disposable income to start buying some things. And then millennials looking for secondhand items that are of high quality, and they're very sustainable generations. They want to reuse things. And they're also looking for things that are unique and different. They don't want to buy from the big box stores. They want something eclectic, different, and collectible. So that those things are good because now they're starting to, we've got the sellers and the buyers. 50% of Gen Z and millennial consumers consider potential resale value of an item before purchasing it. These are smart people. They research, they have access to a lot of information, and they're very savvy buyers. And so they're going to go to websites like estatesales.net, which is essentially the host of all the estate sales and auctions across the North America and probably beyond as well. And they will be able to look for things in their area or auction houses that ship to them for these things. So that's a great way of buying things. And by the way, an important piece of this that's not in this slide is the average age of a home buyer is now, first-time home buyer is 41 years old.
Wow.
That is incredibly different than what we have experienced in our lifetimes. And so these folks that are struggling to purchase a new home, A, they can't purchase a new home because it's too expensive. B, they can't outfit the home, right? Because things are so expensive. So this idea of re-commerce is projected to grow by 80%. It's a huge market because I'll give you an example, a KitchenAid mixer. A KitchenAid mixer, brand new with all of its accessories, is somewhere between $650 to $750. That's just a mixer for your kitchen, right? And someone could buy it off auction. That thing maybe has been moved or used maybe a dozen times in its lifetime, and they can get it for $200 to $300, right? Great solution overall. So those who have participated as bidders in online auctions, 83% have bought something, and then the average value of purchases was $100 or less, and 21% was kind of over 100 to 500. So a lot of kind of $100 and under. So it's a lot of volume. And then, kind of that mid-range of 1 to 500. So there's, of course, auction houses out there that focus in on, $500,000 paintings and, collectibles worth millions of dollars. This, the solution that we provide is more of a kind of mainstream household items at more decorative value and functional value as well. The average age of someone who can afford a single family home has increased to, so this was an old slide, by the way, it's now 41 years old. I just checked it, the new statistics. This was only about 6 months ago. It's changed in that time frame.
That's incredible.
It really is. Online auctions are really popular. About a third of adults in the United States go online to participate in them. So many people are online buying lots of interesting items from those who are now releasing them as part of the downsizing process. Okay, so that's just a background that kind of tells the story of the demand out there, and then also, this kind of unsurmountable supply of items. And so when we have to kind of focus on what are people actually purchasing out of these homes. So these are some questions to consider when you're thinking about resale. Okay, so what is the provenance of that item? Who made it, right? What is the brand? Where did it come from? Has it belonged to someone notable? These are all things, what is the age of it, if that is, if that is available? Does it appeal to a local or global audience? So is it something that should go in a retail store and be sold? An example of that would be a really comfy leather couch. You need to sit on it and feel it and see the color tone in order to get its maximum value. It may not be sold very well online because you're not going to appreciate some of the things about it if it's an online sale. Or is it something so unique, such a collectible, that it actually needs to be put on an auction setting, maybe like eBay, in order to have that global appeal, right? That maybe, so I'll give you an example. We sold some things in an auction. No one bid on it in the United States, but a huge conglomerate of people in the UK we're bidding on it. So there was something very specific about that area of the world who wanted those items. So you don't always know, but those are some questions that we try to assess. Can it be shipped? Is it small enough to ship? Obviously, furniture is not ideal for shipping because it's too expensive. But in general, more eyes, more bidders is what you want to consider, especially with small boutique, eclectic, collectible items or decorative. Does it need to be seen or felt in person, right? So back to the leather couch example, if I sit in that leather couch, boy, I might pay a lot more for it based upon the quality of the leather and the comfort level versus just seeing a picture of it online, right? Would it be marketed better online? Photographed detailed description. So that might be something that has a lot of provenance, like a piece of art that needs to be researched, and you want as many people to get their eyes on that piece of art as possible because it's so unique, and we were able to have somebody authenticate it. So knowing that it has the highest amount of value, it was authenticated. A signed baseball would be another example of that, right? Through a sports auction. What is the condition of the item? Is it in its original packaging or box? So one thing we've learned in our short history of being auctioneers is, boy, some of those boxes can be more valuable than the item itself that it came in. So, brands like, some of the more sophisticated designer brands are really what you want to look for in the boxes that they came from, right? So whether it's the leather bag in the box or whether it's the accessory in the box, those are things that people are really looking for, that preservation, but also just the box, which is really interesting. And does it have something to always consider if you're thinking about putting it online is, does it have a smell or has it been affected by light? Because when you send it for resale and auction, the auction house has to disclose everything to the buyer because they're not there in person. If it has a scratch or a dent or is light affected or it's a little, a little scent, we have to disclose it because then, we want to make sure that transaction does not come back as an unhappy buyer. Okay. So that's a good tidbit of questions for you all. Does it require extensive research or authentication before selling? Again, the signed baseball. There's a pretty exhaustive process for getting a signed baseball authenticated. And sometimes it can cost, thousands of dollars just to authenticate it before you can sell it, depending on who it is and what it is. So that whole process will, getting some guidance on kind of the best auction houses for very specific things like sports memorabilia, art, or could it be Asian wear, right? That's very specific as well. Do the items require specific knowledge or marketing to a specific audience? Kind of like the sports memorabilia that I'm speaking about. Silver also. We're going to talk a little bit about silver and gold in a minute. Do you want to try to sell this privately? So if you have the knowledge and capacity and technology to sell something on your own, we say, go for it, definitely try it, because then you're not giving up a percentage of your commission. And that might be very important to you if you're trying to maximize value. A lot of folks don't feel comfortable in this realm, whether it's, I don't know how eBay works, or I'm not tech savvy, or I don't know what places to go to, to sell something. So that's typically where we come in, is being able to kind of assess all of that. So it could be an auction house, it could be a retail consignment store that's a physical brick and mortar. It could be a buyout specialist for silver, precious metals. It could be a book buyer. So there's so many resources available, and it's just a matter of deciding, is this something I want to take on or do I want to outsource it? Okay. And typically, what is the commission split of working with an auction house, an estate sale company, or retailer? That's a question you want to ask. It's going to depend, right? It's going to depend on the value of the item. It's going to depend on which retail company, or is it an estate sale? Those are all very different business models. So there's different percentages based upon who is selling it. Okay. So, marketable items for retail consignment. So these are some things that I'm just going to highlight as as what we would say are still in vogue. They're still on trend, right? So, fine furnishings would be one of them. Now, most traditional furniture does not have a lot of value anymore. Again, just too much supply, not enough demand. But there are pieces that are of very high quality that are still saleable, and specifically mid-century modern, which is what you're seeing here in the photo, is very, very in demand. And you do want to send that to auction because you want as many people fighting over it as possible, right? Because then that drives the price up. So that would be an example of a fine furnishing. Anything that's original, in great condition, that falls into mid-century modern is very coveted right now. There are other brands, Stickley, Baker, that still, retain value, but it's not what it used to be. So we always tell people, we want to set your expectations correctly when we're going to sell this. Most traditional furniture does not have a lot of value anymore, unfortunately. But we can, donate it. We may find some really unique kind of philanthropic opportunities, or maybe we can actually give it to a retail consignor in a different market if there's enough of it, and it might sell better in a more rural market versus the triangle. That is a strategy we use quite a bit, which is really interesting. Handmade rugs. Chandeliers, common or more traditional items are kind of on the downswing, right? So these are things that we always want to consider how many are out there, right, on the market. That is always the question. If we see it in every home, then typically it's not going to have a lot of market value. That's at the end of the day, that's really the baseline question. If your friends or your neighbors have these things in their homes, they're typically not going to have a lot of value. So that's a great way of considering it. Clothing consignment. So there are retail clothing shops around the Triangle region. We use them as part of our process. We encourage you all to use them as well. They are fairly selective. So something, things that you want to think about is it current? An age, style, is it still kind of on trend? What is the brand? It doesn't have to be brand new, because vintage is actually very, very trendy right now. So, is it a designer or is it truly vintage, meaning kind of pre-1970 might be kind of that category. Post 70s is not considered vintage yet. It will be at some point. And then the condition of the item. If it's in pristine condition, fantastic. If it's in its original box, more fantastic. In season, that is something that clothing consignment, they can't store all of it. And so they will often say, what season is it, in order to take it? And then, should it go online to an auction or should it go to a local consignment store? Typically, when you're looking at clothing and accessories, it's more of, if it has a high value designer brand, then you may want to consider sending it to auction. But if it is more of just typical designer brands that you're going to, go out and shopping for day to day, then typically the retail consignment is going to be your best bet. And, again, we have some throughout the Triangle region. We've had great experiences with all of them. Probably what you will run into that will be the most frustrating part is they will refuse a lot of it. And again, there's so much coming in that they can kind of be really selective with what they're going. And you may say, I don't want to sell any of this. I want it to go to donation in my favorite charity. And that's fantastic. That's, we support that fully. Our job is to present options to our clients. And so this is one of many options that we can help with. So handbags, costume jewelry, obviously fine jewelry, which we'll talk about in a minute, shoes, hats, all of these things can be interesting kind of in a resale environment. And, I say fur coats are selling better up north, but they are becoming increasingly popular. We have had to donate fur coats for 8 years that we've been in business. And the last year we've sold more fur coats at auction than I've ever seen sold before. So I don't know what's going on out there, but fur coats apparently are back in. So yeah, who knew, right? And that's another thing is you can't predict all of these things. They can change fairly quickly. Like within a few months, we see trends change. So whatever I tell you today will probably be different in a year from now. But we try to keep up with these market trends as best we can. This is just an example of some items that were sold at auction. The reason I put this up here, now this is probably, I think this is probably from earlier in the year. So, the prices may be a little different, but this gives you an idea of, a Ben Owen, one of our local famous potters, a piece that he did at 55, Corningware, Pyrex items, kind of a whole lot of it at 70, a Guild acoustic guitar at 440, and then again, a mid-century modern console cabinet at 900. Now that is, I do not believe that is an original. That would be, more of a replica kind of piece, but also, but still a nice piece of furniture. So that just gives you a sampling of some things that you might have in your home and what they might go for. These are some other things. So right now, gold and silver are an all-time high. And so it depends on the fine jewelry that you have. If you have a lot of fine jewelry that is more from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, early 2000s, it may not be very aesthetically pleasing, but the value is in the precious metal. And so we can kind of help navigate that of what can actually be auctioned as a standalone versus what should be melted for the value of the gold and silver. So there's a big difference between those two. And it's becoming more and more more specialized in what's selling at auction. Again, because there's so much on the market, and it's in many cases it's smarter to actually melt the item and get the most out of it because of the prices of the precious metals right now. So a piece of art at 200, a swan decoy. We sell a lot of decoys and they're very popular at 440. A Yadro porcelain at 130. A Steuben piece at 130. Many of you might have this glass front bookcase. We see many of them at 266. They're actually pretty popular. Palatnik owl figure at 135, and then a French opera glasses at 110. So a big variety of items that are sold. Here are some others. Checkerboard at 75. Le Creuset is always some of the most popular. It just sometimes amazes me. Sometimes we auction it more for than what you can buy it new for. It absolutely blows my mind. I think sometimes people get a little carried away on auction, but it's very popular. So we haven't seen that waver at all. That continues to be quite popular. And then a numbered print at 260. Here's some other pieces mid-century, bench at 223, a wool rug at 78, Schwarzschild crystal at 171, table, arts and craft style table lamp at 55, a vintage coach clutch at 60, a Pottery Barn playhouse. I was actually on this project and had to disassemble that one day. So I remember that piece really well at 525, and then a gold pin at 216. I hope this is helpful. I feel like folks get very curious about what are the types of things that are sold and what level of pricing. So that's why I provide these, because it's almost real-time data of what the market is going. Like I said, these prices are probably they're probably about 4 months old, but it's so we might have about $200 delta here and there on some things, but these are still quite popular. Watches do very well. Clocks do quite well. Decanters do well. Crystal is becoming very, very soft. Even nice crystal like Waterford or Tiffany, Lalique, there's just so much on the market. So that's become much, much softer over time. And what is selling, right? What is hot right now? So we kind of talked about some of the things like, are these things marketable? Where could you sell them? Like the fine furnishings and the rugs and that type of thing. Not great for auction, but might be better for retail consignment or another venue. These are the things that really, auction houses are looking for. So signed collectible sports memorabilia, precious gems, fine jewelry, vintage and costume jewelry. Costume jewelry sometimes sells better than fine jewelry. It really is quite interesting. Very specific types, and also in different parts of the world, they want different types. So that's very region specific. Antique timepieces, original signed art and lithographs. So even if you say this piece of art is not worth a lot, what we know to be true is that art sells better than almost anything else, because people want unique things in their home that they can't find other places for decorating. And even art that I would say like, oh, I don't like that piece of art. I don't think that's very attractive. And that might go for $700 or $800 because people like really eclectic art, or sometimes what we call ugly art. That's what people are really decorating with. They want a very eclectic home filled with lots of things that are from different parts of the world and different styles as well. Limited selections of crystals, kind of we talked about. Again, that's softening quite drastically. Collectible technology, so audiovisual equipment, especially vintage. There are folks out there that collect this, and they know what they're doing, and they know what they're looking for, and they search for it globally. So definitely don't send that to the dump if you haven't had that evaluated. And this is an area that's becoming increasingly popular. We call it, and other people call it, natural curiosities. So butterfly, kind of an exhibit of butterflies, specimens, bugs, minerals, taxidermy. This is very, very trendy right now. And so sometimes we'll go into homes and they have just collections of them. And, it's great because it's on trend. So they'll get some great money for it. And then anything that has outdoor decor. So outdoor furniture, wrought iron, high quality, all weather furniture, concrete garden statues, anything that is all weather does quite well in this area, because we have such a nice four season and temperate area. So people use their porches, they use your patios year round. Are we good? Any
That makes
questions at this
sense.
point?
I think we're still collecting questions, but yes, I would encourage anybody who's got a question, use the Q&A. At the top of the screen, there should be a box there. I did submit the kind of a first one just to get things started, but yeah, we'll continue to collect questions and move forward.
All right, I'm gonna keep on trucking then. All right.
All right.
So what else is selling? Obviously, we talked about mid-century modern furniture, and not just furniture, but decoratives. So that may be something in the kitchen that you have is mid-century modern. I was just on a project this morning, and there's a whole mid-century kind of sugar creamer seasoning set that was in perfect condition, and that people will love that. It could be lamps. It might be art that's mid-century modern. Another piece that people get really excited about is quilts are back in. Crochet is back in. Wall art that is texture, textile is back in. So these are all things that are selling quite well at auction. Signed North Carolina pottery. There's a lot of it out there. It's still selling, but we've seen it decline a bit just because so much is coming out of the homes. But North Carolina is obviously the best place to sell North Carolina pottery. So we do sell quite a bit of that. High quality office furniture. So Herman Miller, Acorn, Barca Lounger, anything like that folks are always looking. That's just a staple that folks always are seeking out. Vintage items such as local college memorabilia. So all the signed UNC, NC State, Duke memorabilia that ends up in auction and does quite well. Folks are always looking for that. Toys, comics, again, quilts are very coveted these days. And sometimes we'll go into a home that is a crafter or a workshop, and we'll do big lots of yarns, tools, paints. So things that, and if you're a crafter, these things are expensive, very, very expensive when you buy them new and you accumulate them. And then when you're downsizing, potentially letting go of some of that hobby. And it's a great way to get it in the hands of someone who's really excited about it because it is so exciting. But we can lot it kind of in groupings, for a specific type of hobbyist or art or as I said, like a workshop, that type of thing. We do sell a lot of power tools, hand tools, as well as we sell a lot of kind of yard equipment. Again, those things new are quite expensive. A tool chest, very expensive when you purchase it new. And most of the items that come to us are in really, really great condition. Unique and quirky decoratives. So the one thing I will say that has not changed in the 8 years that we have done this is anything animal sells really well. People love animals. And so whether it's an animal bookends or an animal piece of art or brass is also trendy right now, pops of color, anything that will stand out as being unique, people are really fighting over kind of in the auctions. And then last but not least, and this is the part that really warms my heart, is functional and utilitarian items. So the KitchenAid example, the KitchenAid mixer example, getting this in hands of someone who could not afford this otherwise is a very special thing. This is kind of making the world go around, right? It's going from one home to another home, going from one person who's really loved the item into another hand that's really loved the item, and they're very excited to have won it at the end of the day. So this could be kitchen appliances, vacuums, a Miele vacuum, those do really well. Sharks, that that type of thing. These things are very expensive. New items such as luggage racks do really well because there's a lot of Airbnbs out there now. You might have a room in your home that you're renting out, so luggage racks. And then obviously, any type of power tools, as we discussed. Okay, so this list does not sell well. This is if you're a Antique Roadshow fan, you know it's bad when you hear that from the television show. Well, these are that sound, right? So the traditional style brown furniture, dining room tables, chairs, coffee tables, dressers, curios, bed frames, large desks, armoires. Some of these things we can't even donate now because we've run out of room at the donation places for many of these things. Project furniture is great if you can kind of find a new home for it, but it's not something that can be sold necessarily because, again, there's so much of it in the world. Most upholstered furniture does not sell well unless it's really high end, or leather. Leather does still sell, real leather sells. Any type of clear glassware, many pieces of crystal, we end up donating because there's just so much out on the market. Frames without art, or art that can just be purchased in any box store, that is not resaleable. Any single lamps typically are not resaleable unless it's like a Tiffany lamp or something very special. Anything ceramic, unless it's signed pottery, is typically donated, and nothing logoed. Unless it's kind of a vintage or a local collegiate wear, that as we discussed. A lot of the tablecloths, crocheted and embroidered tablecloths, all of these things typically go to donation, as there's just not much of a market for it right now. And then a lot of folks ask, like, what should I discard? So sometimes, people will throw away things that can definitely be donated, or sometimes they donate things that should just be discarded. And so I say, don't kick the can down the road. So if it should be discarded, I really encourage you to do that, because otherwise it's just taking up resources of a lot of different companies, kind of kicking that can down the road. So what does that look like? Mattresses and box springs. Most nonprofits will not take these. There are some exceptions to that rule, so we can certainly go through that if you'd like. Mildewed or moldy items, things that come out of unconditioned spaces, attics, garages, crawl space, a lot of it just needs to go to kind of be junk hauled, unless it has been in a conditioned space and can be preserved. Rusted tools or metals, it's great because our junk hauling partners will actually recycle scrap metal, so it stays out of the landfill. Broken, unstable furniture, upholstery or clothing that's stained, discolored, ripped, or pet influenced. Isn't that a nice way of saying that? And so, these are things we say, please don't send stained or torn clothes to donation. They have to put them in the trash. And so, try to go ahead and make that call at your home so we don't kick that can down the road. And then just recycling magazines, publications, encyclopedia, and dictionaries. These types of books, no one's are taking anymore. So we do have to either have them junk hauled or, put in a recycling bin. So I always challenge folks, ask yourself, should you be sending it to donation versus discard? About 30, it's actually over 30% of the items that are delivered to nonprofits end up in a landfill. And so, we really try to encourage folks to make that decision at their home, and, trying to, we want to keep things out of the landfill, but we don't want to use up resources in the process of having to make multiple decisions through multiple groups. Okay, so I was stuck in traffic this morning, so I did not bring this item with me to show you online, but you see a picture of it here. Okay. And I like to tell this story because it is probably one. I mean, we've seen a lot of things in 8 years after 5,000 projects, some really unusual things. And I like to share this story because it's just unique and fun. But I also know that we are probably, I want to be time sensitive as well and leave room for questions. So I can always share this story in a minute after questions.
No, I'll just maybe plug the questions again. If you want to use the Q&A tab there at the top of the screen to submit questions, we'll try to have a few minutes to get to them. I see we've got a couple in already, but yeah, why don't you tell us? That was going to be one of my questions, is what's one of the more unique items that you've received? So it sounds like you've got a story for us.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have kind of a bank of those stories in my brain for sure. But this particular thing, and again, I'm sorry I don't have it in person. I was running a little late. Um, so we had a client that had collected ice cream scoops, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ice cream scoops and kind of the old timey ice cream parlor dishes and any vintage wares, right? Over probably a 40-year time span. And so they were asking us to see if we could auction them. Well, as you can imagine, there's not a huge market for ice cream scoops and ice cream parlor items right now. But so, I mean, I think we were able to sell some of it, but it didn't do great. But it did get in the hands of some people that were excited about it. But out of that whole collection, there was one ice cream scoop that stood out. And the rest of the ice cream scoops were just vintage ice cream scoops from the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. So the one in the picture, is there anything that you see, Ben, that's a little unique about that ice cream scoop?
Well, it looks like, if I'm seeing this correctly, the back, it's not full like a normal
Yep.
scoop. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So you can see through the back of it. So you see the little
Yes.
lever, just like a regular scoop, where it scoop, it turns, right, to kind of clear the surface area. And normally the back is solid, so you get a full scoop of ice cream where it just continues to turn, right? And you get that fold where you get a full scoop of ice cream. And then, at an ice cream parlor, they would put that on a cone or in a cup or wherever it's going to go, in a dish, I should say. And this particular ice cream scoop has nothing on the back of it, but it has the lever to scoop at it. So does anyone want to take a wild guess as to why someone would create, somebody would want to create an ice cream scoop that does not have a back so that it can create a full scoop of ice cream? I just what? Does anyone trying to take a stab at this? No?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Great.
Wait
So
for it. I don't see anything in the chat, but yeah, we're
great.
curious
Good.
for
Good.
sure.
Good. So as you all know, well, you may or may not know, during the era of the Depression, people cut corners,
Uh,
right? And so instead of giving a full scoop of ice cream, they were giving essentially it's just one layer on the outside of ice cream with air in the middle. And that's how they
wow.
would save money to put it on an ice cream cone or in a dish. And honestly, this is one of the most unique, because I have given many presentations and no one knows what this is. Even folks that live through that era, that I've connected with over the years. And it's just one of those, and I think we held on to it and paid the client because we just thought it was so unique. We wanted to share the story, with other people. And I'm not sure you'll ever see one of these again. So yeah, so they'd get a little sneaky and they'd put these air-filled ice cream scoops on people's cones to get by, and with their ice cream store. So just a fun little story. So
There you go.
yeah.
That's
So
you hear about the less chips in the bag, right? So it's kind of the shrinkflation version of ice cream. That's
absolutely.
interesting. Yeah.
Probably taken to a whole new level for sure. But yeah, absolutely. So this is just a little bit about us. You know, we're North Carolina auctioneers. We've been featured on PBS. We are a dementia-friendly organization. As you stated, we just were awarded with a wonderful honor of Inc. 5000, you know, we are an accredited organization. So who works well with our model? So someone who is interested in outsourcing this process, kind of from beginning to end, that works really well with us. We can do pieces and parts of our services. That doesn't always work as well, because as you can imagine, we have a pretty efficient process to get through the entire thing. So, you know, that's someone who's looking to outsource all of it, someone who is extremely overwhelmed and really understands the value of outsourcing these services. As you see, we have everything under one umbrella. We have the downsizers that are out working with our clients every day. We have the auction house, and then we have in-house movers as well to kind of get things from A to B to C, and shuttling items around. And then we also have a huge resource of third-party partners, one of them being larger moving companies, and then of course other auction companies, retail consigners, buyout specialists, and shippers, art specialists. You know, if you're creating art and getting it to your son in Wyoming, it may require some very special care. So that is, we are pretty full service, as you can see, but I hope this has been helped to provide some clarity on just the, you know, what the market is bearing right now, what to focus on, and also what not to focus on. And
Yeah.
then really bringing someone in that has some knowledge on this. If you think you have items of value, it is worth bringing someone in to evaluate, you know, this whole, you know, before you start kind of making decisions, I think is probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense to use a professional to make sure you get the most out of it and know what to keep. You don't want to throw away that super
Yeah.
expensive, you know, or valuable ice cream scoop. It might turn out, you know, who knows?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
We do have a couple questions I want to get to here. One question that came in was just around the app itself. Should they just go to the consigners.com website to find the app, or do they go to an app store and search a
Yep.
certain thing? Or
Either way, so if you go to the consigners.com, it will walk you through how to download the app. If you go to the App Store on your phone, then you just type in the consigners and you'll see it. They're available for download. So either way will get you there. The more direct way is the App Store for sure.
okay, great. And then another question was, do you have any tips on what you should keep for a smaller retirement home? So like, is there a prioritization maybe that you think through as you're going to a smaller place?
Great question. So in one of our other presentations, I go through like the top 10 tips to downsizing. So I'm going to give you one really important tip. So as you're going through your home, when you're sorting things, you are sorting like items together. And I'm going to give you an example of that. In a single family home, most people have a lot of vases, right? You've accumulated vases over the years. Some of them are really nice and some of them maybe, you know, just you got gifted, you know, here and there. So in a home, you may have vases in a kitchen, a dining room, a pantry, a utility room, the garage, possibly the attic, and maybe the second bedroom or even the basement. And so when you're making a decision about what vases should I bring, it's kind of, you know, it's unreasonable to think you can make a good decision, an educated decision, unless you see everything that you have. Right. So this could go for, so in a home, a regular single family home, you're going to have probably about 44 vases. and you're going to a 2-bedroom apartment in a community, I'm going to say, as a downsizer, what are the top 3 or 4 vases you would like to take? And a reasonable answer would be, I'm going to take a wide vase, a tall vase, my favorite colored vase, and then maybe a tiny vase, a little bud vase, right? So that's a great variety of vases. But what are we going to do with the 43? We're going to donate them. We might be able to sell some, that type of thing. So anyone going through this process is going through that with kitchenware, entertaining wear, office supplies, books, art, toiletries, linens, towels, decorative pieces, maybe on your bookcases or in your curio cabinets, anything that has a category in your home. You're saying, I'm downsizing 80%. I'm going from this amount of square footage to this amount of square footage. But you have to count the unfinished square feet in that percentage because you have items there. It's not just finished square feet, and that people get really they get caught on that one. So it's not just 60% downsize. It might be a 90% downsize because in that single family home, you got a 2-car garage, you got a crawl space, you got a shed, you might have an attic full, you have lots more surface area because of closets and shelves and books, built-ins and cabinets and storage areas, right? So you have to think of the total picture and go category by category and go, okay, this is an 80% downsize. So I'm going to take 20% of this, 20% of that, 20%. And at the end of the day, you're going to take your most special items, right? That's really what to think of. The other piece is think about the lifestyle change, because one of the reasons of moving to a community is so that they can take care of all the entertaining and they can take care of all the maintenance, right? So you don't need the yard and tool items. You don't need all the 14 platters for entertaining or the six sets of china, right? Because you're not entertaining. Excuse me. So that's you're really thinking, this is a lifestyle change. I don't need all of that. Or maybe you are a hobbyist, or you have a workshop, or you have a craft room. Maybe it's just taking a portion of it. Or is there a room or activity room that you can donate it to at the senior community? Like they have lots of arts and crafts areas and or workshops and woodworking and, so many wonderful things. So that's, those are always questions that we ask of, are you going to be using this in your 2-bedroom apartment? Is that practical? And that's a big one.
Great. Well, I know we have a few more questions, but I do want to kind of wrap up here fairly soon. I know we've gone a little bit over, but real quickly, how long does it take for most items to sell? I imagine it can vary, but and then how long do auctions last?
Yeah, so it depends on the auction house, how long it goes for. Ours, for example, we have kind of a pre-bidding time frame that's usually about a week, and then we have about a week of bidding, like 5 to 7 days of bidding, and so and then typically it sells in that auction. If it doesn't sell, we typically forward it to the next auction. That's how we handle it. But every auction house is a little different. Some auctions only last like 2 days. So that's something you'll want to ask as you're kind of investigating and researching where you want to sell things through. A retail consignor is typically, not always, typically going to keep it on the floor for about 90 days to try to sell it. Yeah, you think about a consignment model, they're not going to make any money until they sell your item. So they're very incented to sell it and price it well and, kind of move it. But if they don't sell it, then they don't get paid. Same thing for an auction home, right? We're gonna try to market that auction so that the bids go up and everyone's happy at the end of the day. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. And then last one, is there a general cost to get an appraisal or how does that work?
Okay, so a lot of folks ask me about appraisals and like, I should get everything in my house appraised. And I say, well, if you want that for insurance purposes, that is fine. That would be the reason to get things appraised. The resale market value has nothing to do with appraisal value. So, and appraisals can be quite expensive. So I would really, I would challenge you to, if a client, if they said, I want to get an appraisal for this item that's under $1,000, I'd say, well, that might sell for $800 or $900. You're going to spend $500 to $600 on the appraisal. The math doesn't work, right? So if there is a very valuable item in your home that needs to go to a certain type of auctioneer that has an appraiser and authenticator on staff, then it might make sense to get that appraisal. But it's very few and far between that we would ever recommend that other than insurance purposes.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you sharing all this with us. It's been really, really helpful. And if anybody has questions or further questions, you want to reach out, you feel free to reach out to Elizabeth's team. You can go to the downsizers.com or the consigners.com as well. Sound like the app is pretty exciting as well, just to be able to have that on your phone and kind of see where things are going. So feel free to go to the App Store and download that and check that out. Thank you all for joining us. We certainly covered a lot today, and hopefully we answered some of your bigger questions that you had in mind. And however, if you have any other questions, again, please feel free to reach out to us. You can go to hilltopwealthadvisors.com to reach out to us, and then also the Downsizers and the consigners.com for Elizabeth's teams. We will be sending out a recording of the webinar. So for everybody that attended it, you can get a copy of this, and we'll be posting it to our YouTube site as well. So be on the lookout for that. If you found this helpful, please share it with your friends, your family, your colleagues. They likely have some of these same questions and might benefit from that as well. And if you're not already working with Hilltop, we'd love to help you too. Again, you can go to hilltopwealthadvisors.com and request an introductory call to speak with one of our advisors and just learn a little bit more about us, and as we learn more about you as well. So again, thank you all for joining us. We hope this has been helpful, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.